drifting through the open barn doors as the men stood watching her. Out here, in a place where a man was measured by the strength of his hands and the steadiness of his aim, a woman had no business standing so calm beside a restless horse that had thrown every rider who dared touch it. Yet there she was, her palm pressed gently against the animal's neck, whispering something too soft for anyone else to hear. The horse had a reputation. Big, dark, and mean as a summer storm, it had already sent 2 seasoned cowboys limping home and one clear out of the territory. Folks said it wasn't just wild, it was thinking wild. The kind that looked a man in the eye before deciding whether he was worth the trouble of breaking. And still, she stood there without fear. The men by the door shifted uneasily, boots scraping against the wooden floor. One crossed his arms. Another spat into the dirt. None of them stepped forward. They had all seen what that horse could do. None of them wanted to see it again up close. She didn't look like someone who belonged among them. Her dress was plain but clean, the kind worn by women who worked hard but stayed out of sight. Her hair was tied back, not for beauty but for purpose. There was nothing fancy about her, nothing that would turn heads in a town dance or catch the eye of a passing drifter. That was the problem, folks said. That was why no one wanted her. Except one man did. He leaned against the post, just inside the barn, hat tipped low, watching her in a way the others weren't. He wasn't watching for a fall or a mistake. He was watching like a man trying to understand something rare. He had been the one to take the deal. The one who rode into town and came out with a bride people whispered about behind closed doors. They said he got her cheap. Said he must have been desperate. Said no decent man would choose a woman like that when there were others to be had. But he hadn't listened then, and he wasn't listening now. The horse shifted under her touch, muscles tight, ears flicking back. It was waiting, testing. Anyone could see that. This was the moment when most men got thrown. This was when pride took over and sense walked out the door. She didn't pull back, didn't tighten her grip. She just stood there, breathing steady, like she had all the time in the world. "You're pushing your luck," one of the men muttered, though not loud enough for her to hear. Or maybe she did hear. She didn't turn, didn't answer. Her focus never left the animal. A long second passed, then another. The horse lowered its head just a fraction. That small movement sent a ripple through the barn. The men straightened. One even took a step closer, as if he didn't quite believe what he was seeing. The man by the post didn't move at all, but something changed in his face. Not surprise. Not quite pride either, something quieter. Something like certainty. No one knew where she learned it. She hadn't said much since arriving, kept her words short and her eyes steady. But rumors had already started to spread. Stories about places far beyond the edge of the territory. About long trails, broken horses, and men who underestimated her once and never did again. Still, rumors were one thing. This was different. This was proof. The horse exhaled, a low sound, almost like a sigh. Her hand moved slowly along its neck, firm but gentle. She stepped closer, closing the space most men wouldn't dare enter. Behind her, the man finally pushed off the post and took a few steps forward. "Careful," someone called out, unable to hold back anymore. She paused then, just for a heartbeat. And for the first time, the horse's ears pinned back sharply. The air changed. Every man in that barn felt it at once. That thin line between control and chaos, stretched tight and ready to snap. Her fingers tightened slightly against the horse's coat. The animal's muscles coiled. And in that exact moment, just before anything could happen, the man who had chosen the bride, nobody wanted, realized something that made his chest go still. He didn't know if she was about to tame the most dangerous horse in the territory, or if he had just brought something far more dangerous into his life. The horse's front hoof stamped hard against the ground, a sharp crack echoing through the barn. Dust jumped from the floor. Every man near the door froze, their bodies tense like drawn wire. No one spoke now. Even the wind outside seemed to hold back. She did not step away. Her hand stayed where it was, though her fingers pressed a little firmer, as if she felt the shift before anyone else could see it. Her shoulders stayed relaxed, but her eyes sharpened, fixed on the horse's movement. She knew this moment. It was written in the animal's breath, in the way its skin twitched beneath her touch. The man who had taken her as his bride moved another step closer, slow and careful. He knew better than to rush. Out here, rushing got a man hurt or worse. Still, something in him pulled forward, a quiet urge to stand near her, even if he could not say why. "Easy now," he said, his voice low, not aimed at her but at the horse. A few of the men glanced at him, surprised he would speak at all. Most of them had thought he brought her here as a mistake. Now they weren't so sure what he had brought. The horse tossed its head once, a warning. Its dark eyes flashed, rolling just enough to show the white. The kind of look that came before trouble. She finally moved, but not back. Her hand slid up along the horse's neck toward its jaw, slow as falling dust. She leaned in just slightly, her voice coming out soft and steady. "I see you," she murmured. The words were simple, but something about them carried weight. The horse's ears flicked forward for a brief second, then back again, caught between fight and something else. The man stopped where he was, watching her closely now. He had seen plenty of riders try to break wild horses. They used rope, force, and loud commands. What she was doing was different. It did not look like breaking at all. It looked like listening. One of the older cowboys near the door shook his head slowly. "Ain't right," he muttered under his breath. "No horse like that just gives in." But she wasn't asking it to give in. The barn held its breath as she took another small step closer, now standing near the horse's shoulder. The animal tensed again, muscles tight as rope, ready to bolt or strike. Her hand stayed steady, her touch sure, like she had done this 100 times before. And maybe she had. Back in town, people had talked. Not kindly, not fairly, but they talked. Said she came from far off, from rough land where only the stubborn survived. Said she worked with horses no one else could handle. Said she knew things men didn't like admitting a woman could know. But no one had seen it with their own eyes. Until now. The man remembered the day he first saw her. She stood apart from the others, quiet, not trying to catch anyone's eye. While other women spoke and smiled, she watched, always watching. He had noticed her hands first, not soft, not idle. Strong hands marked by work. When he asked about her, the answers came with shrugs and sideways looks. Nobody wanted her, they said. Too strange. Too quiet, too much trouble for a simple life. He had almost walked away, almost a loud snort snapped him back to the present. The horse jerked its head, stepping sideways, its body brushing against her shoulder. A gasp rose from the men at the door. But she didn't panic. She moved with it. Her feet shifted in the dirt, keeping balance, her hand never leaving the horse. Her other hand came up slowly, resting near its face, not grabbing, not forcing. "Just there. You don't trust easy," she said softly. "That's all right." The words were meant for the horse, but something in them seemed to echo beyond it. The man felt it too. He had not asked her many questions since bringing her here. Truth was, he did not know what answers he might get. There was a distance about her, like she carried more than she showed. He figured time would tell. Now he wasn't so sure time would be enough. The horse's breathing slowed just a little. Not calm, not yet, but less sharp than before. It shifted its weight again, testing. From the corner, one of the men finally spoke up. "Where'd she learn that?" he asked, his voice low but clear. No one answered, because no one knew. The man who had married her took another careful step forward, now close enough to see the small details others might miss. The way her jaw tightened just slightly. The way her eyes stayed locked, not soft but focused. This wasn't ease. This was control, earned somewhere far from here. "Tell me something," he said quietly, not taking his eyes off her. "You ever been thrown?" For the first time, she glanced at him. It was quick, just a flick of her eyes, but it carried something deep. Not fear. Not pride? Something older? "Not by one that mattered," she replied. Before he could ask what that meant, the horse suddenly jerked back, its body coiling with sudden force. Its front legs lifted just enough to shift balance, a dangerous move in such a tight space. The barn erupted in noise. Boots scraped, someone cursed, another stepped back fast, but she was still right there. And this time, the horse did not stop halfway. The horse surged up with a sudden burst of power, its front legs lifting higher this time, striking the air. Dust flew as its hooves came down hard, shaking the wooden floor beneath them. A sharp shout broke from the men near the door, and two of them stumbled backward, knocking into the wall. She didn't run. Her body moved fast but not wild. She stepped with the horse, turning just enough to stay clear of its front legs, her hands sliding down its neck to keep contact. Her breath stayed steady, though her chest rose a little faster now. This was no longer quiet work. This was the edge of something breaking. "Get away from it," one man called out, louder this time, fear cutting through his voice. The cowboy who had brought her here didn't speak. He stood firm, eyes locked on her, reading every movement. His hands hung loose at his sides, ready but unsure what help he could offer without making things worse. The horse spun half a step, its body twisting, trying to pull free from her touch. Its tail flicked sharply, ears pinned tight. It was fighting now, not just testing. Fighting whatever it felt pressing against its will. Still, she stayed close. Her hand pressed firmer against its neck, not forcing but holding a line. "Easy," she said again, but this time her voice carried more weight, more command. "You don't need to fight me." The words sounded simple, but the tone behind them had changed. It wasn't soft anymore. It was steady, sure, like someone who had stood in this storm before and learned how to stay upright. The horse jerked again, its head tossing high, and for a second it looked like it would break away completely. The men at the door leaned forward, expecting her to be thrown back or trampled. Instead, she moved closer. That choice made no sense to them. Even the cowboy felt a flicker of doubt. Every instinct said to step away from danger, not into it. Yet she closed the space, her shoulder brushing the horse's neck, her other hand coming up to its face. "Look at me," she said. It sounded strange, asking that of an animal, but something in her voice held firm. The horse's head dropped just enough, its eyes shifting toward her. For a brief moment, they were still. The tension didn't disappear. It just tightened into something quieter, more dangerous. From the back of the barn, the older cowboy spoke again, this time to the others. "This ain't just about the horse," he said under his breath. "Something else is going on here." A few of them nodded, though none could say what that something was. The cowboy near the center heard it too. Not the words, but the feeling behind them. He had taken her in thinking he understood the risk. A quiet woman, unwanted by others, might bring trouble of a simple kind. Silence, distance, maybe regret. This was something different. He watched her closely now, seeing past the calm she tried to hold. There was a tightness in her jaw, a shadow in her eyes that spoke of more than just this moment. She wasn't just handling a wild horse. She was holding back something inside herself. The horse shifted again, its breathing heavy, nostrils flaring. It wasn't done, not even close, but it hadn't struck. Not yet. She leaned her forehead gently against the side of its face, a move so unexpected that it made one of the men suck in a sharp breath. No one spoke. No one dared. For a second, it worked. The horse stood still, its body tense but unmoving. Its breath slowed just a little, matching hers. The space between fight and calm balanced on a thin edge. Then a loud noise cracked from outside. A door slammed hard against the barn wall as the wind picked up. The horse exploded. It lunged sideways, its body slamming into the stall railing with a loud crash. Wood splintered. The sudden movement broke whatever fragile hold she had built. She staggered, her grip slipping for the first time. The cowboy stepped forward fast now, no longer holding back. "Watch out!" he shouted, reaching toward her. But she lifted her hand sharply without looking at him, stopping him in place. "Don't," she said. The word came out strong, leaving no room for argument. He froze. The horse reared again, higher this time, its front legs kicking out in the air. Panic rippled through the barn. One of the men grabbed a rope, another reached for the door, ready to bolt if things went worse. Still, she stayed. But now there was a crack in her control. A small one, but real. Her foot slid slightly in the dirt as she adjusted her stance. Her breathing was no longer as steady as before. And the horse could feel it, animals always could. "You're not the only one who's been pushed," she said, her voice lower now, almost strained. "You're not the only one who learned to fight." The words carried something heavier this time. Not just for the horse. The cowboy heard it clearly. This wasn't just skill. This was memory, hard memory. He took a slow step closer again, careful, watching both her and the horse. You don't have to prove anything here, he said quietly. She didn't look at him. Yes, I do, she replied. The horse struck the ground again, closer to her this time. And in that moment, as dust filled the air and the barn trembled with the force of it, the cowboy realized the truth he had been avoiding. This fight was no longer just between a woman and a wild horse. It was between everything she had been through and everything waiting for her here. And he had no idea which side would win. The horse crashed down again, hoof striking the ground with a force that echoed through the barn walls. The broken rail rattled behind it, hanging loose, one more sharp movement away from giving way completely. Dust swirled thick now, turning the air hazy, making every breath feel heavier than the last. She stood her ground, but the space between them had changed. It was no longer calm and steady. It was charged, uncertain, like a storm about to break wide open. The men near the door had stopped pretending to be calm. One held a rope tight in his hands, knuckles white. Another had already stepped halfway outside, ready to run if things turned worse. No one laughed now. No one doubted her skill. But skill only went so far when fear took over. The cowboy moved another step closer, slow and careful, boots sinking slightly into the dirt. His eyes stayed on her, not the horse. He was watching for something in her that might give way before the animal did. "You're losing him," one of the men called out, unable to keep quiet any longer. She didn't answer. Her focus stayed locked on the horse, but there was a flicker now, a small hesitation that hadn't been there before. The horse felt it too. Its ears twitched, its body shifting side to side, testing for weakness. "You can still step back," the cowboy said quietly, his voice cutting through the noise just enough to reach her. This time she heard him. Her eyes moved toward him for a second, and in that glance there was something new. Not just strain, not just focus. Something close to doubt, but it vanished just as quickly. "If I step back now," she said, her voice low but firm, "it learns it can push through me." The horse jerked its head again, pulling against the invisible line she held. It wasn't backing down. Not yet. The cowboy nodded once, though she wasn't looking anymore. He understood enough to know she was right. Out here, once something learned it could win by force, it never forgot. But he also saw something she might not. "You're not the same as him," he said. "You don't have to win the same way." The words hung in the air, heavier than the dust. For a moment, she didn't move. The horse shifted again, stepping closer to the broken rail, its body angled as if ready to bolt straight through. One more strong push, and it would be loose in the open yard where no one could control it. The men tensed. The one with the rope took a step forward, ready to throw it if needed. "Don't," she said sharply, without looking back. He froze in place. The barn fell quiet again, except for the horse's heavy breathing and the creak of wood under strain. She took a slow breath, deeper this time, and something in her posture changed. Not weaker, not stronger, just different, less force, more weight. Like she had shifted from pushing against the storm to standing through it. Her hand moved again, slower than before, reaching toward the horse's face. Not straight on this time, but from the side, careful, measured. "You're tired," she murmured. "You just don't know it yet." The horse's head lifted high, resisting, but not as sharply as before. Its movements were still strong, but there was a slight drag to them now, a hint of wear beneath the fight. The cowboy saw it too. He stepped closer, just enough to be within reach if something went wrong. His voice softened. "Let him come to you," he said. "Don't chase him." She didn't answer, but her hand paused in the air, just short of the horse's face. For the first time since it all began, she waited. The horse shifted its weight, uncertain now. Its ears flicked forward, then back again. The fight was still there, but it was no longer clean. It was tangled with something else, curiosity, confusion, time stretched thin. No one in the barn moved. Even the man near the door leaned in again, drawn back despite himself. The horse lowered its head just slightly, then pulled it back up, unsure. It took a half step forward, then stopped. She didn't move. The cowboy held his breath without realizing it. "Come on," he said quietly, though he wasn't sure if he meant the horse or her. Another long second passed. Then the horse stepped forward. It was small, barely more than a shift in the dirt, but it changed everything. The distance between them closed, just enough for her fingers to brush its face again. This time, it didn't jerk away. A ripple moved through the barn. Not relief, not yet, but something close to it. Her hand settled gently against the horse's cheek, her touch steady again, though her arm trembled just slightly from the strain. "You see?" she whispered. "You didn't have to fight me." The horse exhaled hard, its breath warm against her skin. Its body was still tense, still ready to pull away at any second, but it hadn't. The cowboy took one more step closer, now standing just a few feet away. He could see everything clearly now. The dust on her dress, the strain in her hands, the quiet determination in her eyes, and something else. Something softer, buried deep beneath all of it. "You've done enough," he said gently. She shook her head just once. "Not yet." The horse shifted again, its muscles tightening without warning. The moment of calm wavered, fragile as glass. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the loose door once more. The sound echoed sharp and sudden. The horse flinched. And this time, instead of stepping back, it surged forward. The horse lunged forward with sudden force, its weight closing the space between them in a single breath. A sharp gasp broke from the men at the door, and one of them dropped the rope in shock. The cowboy stepped in fast, ready to pull her clear. But she did not step away. Instead, she stood still and let the horse come. Its head drove forward, stopping just inches from her chest, breath hot and wild. For a moment, it looked like everything would break loose again. The tension snapped tight, ready to turn into chaos. Then something changed. Her hand rose slowly and rested against its face, firm and steady. Not pushing, not pulling, just there. Her other hand followed, gentle but sure, like she had been waiting for this exact moment all along. "I'm not against you," she said quietly. The words were simple, but they carried truth that even the horse seemed to feel. Its breathing stayed heavy, but it didn't strike. Its head lowered just a little, enough to ease the sharp edge in its stance. The barn went silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the wind outside seemed to settle, as if the world itself was watching. The cowboy stopped a step behind her, close enough to act if needed, but he didn't reach out. He saw it now. This wasn't something he could fix or control. This belonged to her. The horse shifted again, but the fight had changed. It wasn't wild and blind anymore. It was searching, testing in a different way. She kept her hands steady, her voice low. "You're not alone in it," she murmured. Slowly, the horse let out a long breath. Its body loosened just enough to show the first real sign of trust. Not full, not complete, but real. One of the men near the door whispered, almost in disbelief, "I'll be damned." The older cowboy beside him nodded once, his eyes fixed on the scene. "That ain't breaking," he said. "That's something else." The horse lowered its head another inch. Its ears eased forward, no longer pinned tight. The storm inside it had not disappeared, but it had quieted. She stepped closer, closing the last of the space between them, and rested her forehead gently against its face again. This time, the horse didn't pull away. The tension that had filled the barn began to drain, slow and steady, like water finding its way out of a cracked barrel. Behind her, the cowboy let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. A faint smile touched his face, not wide or loud, but real. "You just turned the whole place upside down?" he said softly. She didn't look back right away. Her hand moved along the horse's neck. "Calm now, sure again." Only then did she glance over her shoulder. "I didn't come here to fit in," she said. "I came here to work." There was no sharpness in her voice. Just honesty. The men by the door shifted, their earlier doubt gone, replaced by something quieter. Respect, though none of them would say it out loud just yet. The cowboy stepped up beside her, close enough to share the space, but careful not to crowd it. "Looks like you'll have plenty of that," he replied. The horse stood still between them, no longer fighting, no longer trying to break free. It wasn't fully tamed, not yet, but it had chosen to stand instead of run. And that meant everything. The broken rail behind them hung loose, a reminder of what had almost happened, but no one rushed to fix it right away. No one wanted to break the moment. After a while, the older cowboy walked forward slowly, stopping a few feet away. He studied the horse, then looked at her. "Where'd you learn that?" he asked. She paused, her hands still resting on the horse. For a second, it seemed like she might not answer. "Hard places," she said simply. Places where you listen or you don't last long, he nodded as if that was enough. The men began to relax, some stepping closer now, curiosity replacing fear. The barn felt different than it had before. Lighter, but also steadier. The cowboy looked at her again, seeing her clearly now in a way he hadn't before. Not as the bride nobody wanted. Not as a question or a risk, but as someone who belonged. "You sure you're staying?" he asked, his tone quieter now. She met his gaze fully this time. There was no doubt in her eyes anymore. "Yes," she said. He nodded once, satisfied. Outside, the sun had shifted, casting warm light through the barn doors. Dust still floated in the air, but it no longer felt heavy. It caught the light instead, turning the whole place golden. The horse shifted slightly, then stood calm again, its head low, its breath even. She smiled faintly, just enough to show. And for the first time since she arrived, no one in that barn questioned whether she belonged there or not. Because the truth had settled in clear and steady. The cowboy hadn't taken the bride nobody wanted.